Hey guys, so welcome to another sophisticated Saturday episode where we break down a transaction. I challenge you to work out what questions you're going to ask the vendor and how you're going to structure the deal. And I'm recording this in beautiful, lush Costa Rican jungle. We're in the central region of Costa Rica at the moment. I'm here with my family. We're on a trek, a day-long horse riding trek, and this particular deal has paid for today, and I'm going to explain exactly how that happened. We've been here for 2 months now, homeschooling the kids, doing a bit of business here in Central America. But the key thing is my portfolio, these deals, some of which, like today's deal, I did it 7 years ago. It's still paying me every single month and is still paying for indefinite travel if that's what you want to do with it. So let me tell you about today's deal. The vendor wanted to emigrate and didn't like the idea of having a property left there. They were selling their own home and they had one buy-to-let property and they didn't want to keep this buy-to-let property. It actually had a tenant in it. The tenant was paying $395 a month and it was tired. It needed about £3,000 spending on it, and that was it. They just didn't want the liability of this buy-to-let property when they were living overseas. That seemed like a real headache to them. They were retiring and they didn't want to have to deal with legislation. They didn't want to have to deal with tenants and maintenance and letting agents. They'd managed it themselves, and so the workload that they'd been putting into the property was quite high. Now, it's in West Wales, this property, so I don't have a single property in Wales, so I was a little reluctant to do the deal, but they told me it was worth between £75,000 and £80,000. I valued it myself at 78, so they were bang on the money with the value, and they didn't have a mortgage on it. They had tried to sell it at 78, funnily enough, so I agreed with the purchaser's price, but the purchaser had pulled out. They just wanted it done and dusted and to forget about the property, basically. So before we go into the interlude, what questions do you need to ask the vendor and how are you going to structure the deal? That is not enough information to structure this deal. You need to know more about the vendor. But what do you need to know? What do you need to know about the property? I'll see you after the break and I'll tell you the answers. Welcome back, guys. So, what questions did you ask the vendors? Well, there's a few questions you need to know. The first is, what are they going to do with the money? So the motivation was to get rid of the property, not to have the money in their account. In fact, they were just going to put it into an interest generating account at less than 1%. That's like £50 a month, £60 a month, nothing, absolutely nothing. So what I said to them was, well, if that's what you're going to do and this is the solution, how did you solve this transaction? And if you didn't do it, guys, pause the video now and work it out. Work out, how would you solve this? How much would you give them? How would you structure the deal? The key is to practice how to achieve a win-win solution. And here's how I solved it. I actually exchanged contracts on the property and purchased it. So I actually purchased the property. Now, I could have done it on a lease option. I could have done it on an exchange with delayed completion, but because they were going overseas, I wanted to actually complete on the property, because what if I can't find them in the future? You know, what if they're unwilling to sign documents, etc.? I'd prefer, they say that the saying is ownership is 9/10 of the law, and I'm inclined to agree with them. So I bought the property, but they lent me the money to buy it. So they lent me the £75,000. I didn't put a penny into the deal myself, not a single penny, and they had the first charge on the property. Now, this deal is perhaps one of my better ones because it was a 15-year fixed rate mortgage and I pay them £181 a month. Now, that's just under 3%, it's 2.7, 2.8%. It's an interest-only mortgage, so I do owe them the £78,000 in 8 years' time. I've had this going for 7 years already now. Listen to how much work I had to put into it. I went there with my team. I did go and view the property, so I took my wife to West Wales. I grew up in West Wales, so it was a bit of a walk down memory lane. We spent a long weekend there. We went to the beach. We spent about half an hour walking around this property just to make sure that it had a roof on it, you know, didn't have subsidence. There was nothing awful about it. It was just tired. In fact, it was almost ready to let out. Well, it had a tenant in it, but those tenants were on their way. They'd already said, and the vendor had said, these tenants won't be around for very much longer. In fact, I think by the time I walked around, the tenants had moved out. So when I started the negotiation, the tenants were in there, then they moved out, then I walked around the property. I worked out it was about £3,000 worth of work, which was fine and dandy by me. I wasn't spending a penny on buying it. I did have to pay stamp duty, although it was below the threshold, so there was no stamp duty liability at that point. There was no 3% surcharge at that point. There of course would be now. Once we'd completed on it, and it only took I think 2 or 3 weeks because there was no searches or anything, it was really quick, then I went there with my team. They stayed at the property. My teams do this for me, so they'll go to a week, they'll do really long days, so I pay them 150% of their day rate, and they'll work 12-hour days instead of 8-hour days. And the whole thing, the £3,000 worth of work, it wasn't lots. I think we had a couple of carpets fitted, a bit of painting, decorating, a bit of like plastering and stuff, not lots. Just tidied the place up. We put some curtain rails up. We checked the electrics out, nothing major at all, and we put in a log burning stove. The old one was not working basically. I then drove back, and that's it. I've been to this property twice. I reckon I've spent a total of maybe 25 hours on this property 7 years ago, and it pays me every single month. So how much does it pay me? Well, it was earning $395 a month. We've actually crept that rent up. That rent is now $435 a month, and I pay out $181 in mortgage costs. That's fixed. Plus I pay out a bit for the letting agent, and so I have a letting agent manage that. I think I pay 8 or 10%, probably 10% over there. And that's it basically. All the costs are covered by the tenant. We've had 2 tenants in that whole time. One tenant's just offered me £100,000 to buy it. I ummed and ahed about it. I decided not to, because it makes me a few £100 every single month. If you work it out, that 15-year mortgage and the profit that I make every single month times 180 months, 15 years, I'll only owe about £40,000 on that property in 15 years time, but it won't be worth £78,000. It's not worth £78,000 now after just 7 years. It's worth probably 100 actually, maybe 105, 110. I think the tenant was trying it on a little bit. That's £30,000 I've made already, plus a couple £100 every single month of the year. It's amazing, guys. I sometimes talk about it as magic money, and it is magic money because I bought a house and the vendor paid me to buy it. They lent me the £78,000 to buy the property. The property pays me every single month, a few £100 a month. It's paid for this today, for us to come horse riding in the beautiful Costa Rican jungle countryside. It's paid for me and my family to be over here whilst my portfolio is still working for me. All these properties are still working. It almost feels cheeky. It feels cheeky that 7 years ago I did what's 25 hours, 3 days work. It's not even 3 days work for me, and now for the rest of my life that property is going to pay me. Now, yes, I'll have to do a little bit more work in 7-8 years time when I have to repay the mortgage. So I own the property at the moment. I haven't had to apply for a mortgage, no credit check. People tell me all the time, oh, I can't get a mortgage, so I can't invest in property. You can if you're creative enough, if you're good enough at asking questions and working out a vendor's problem, and then if you're creative enough to solve that vendor's problem. And so yes, I'll need to refinance in 15 years time, but if I don't want to refinance, I could just sell and pay the 78 to the vendor and put the balance in my pocket. So if it goes up by another 30,000 in the next 8 years, that's possible. £60,000 payday when I come to sell it, and I've made I have more than a £60,000 payday, because I'll have paid off £40,000 of the mortgage, because I've saved up the £200. It depends, doesn't it? If you live on the £200 a month, then you still owe 78 at the end. If you save the £200-300 a month, whatever the profit is, then that can accumulate in a pot, and it's actually paying off the property. So it depends how you want to play it. But guys, if you came up with that solution, congratulations. If you came up with a lesser solution, if you missed an opportunity there, pop it in the comments. That's the best way of learning. And if you came up with a better solution, you think you could structure it better, it's entirely possible. I don't proclaim that I'm the best at structuring deals. I don't say that, my solutions are the best. I just have a fair bit of experience of working out how to help vendors. I was mentoring a guy here, actually. I did a day's mentoring in San Jose, the capital of Costa Rica. And the guy had so many questions about what if this and what if that. And towards the end of the day, I realised he didn't have the mentality to be a sophisticated property investor. He might be a property investor at some point, but he didn't have the mentality to weigh up the pros and cons. There is no deal on this planet that is risk-free. There is always some kind of risk that you're adopting, but you minimize the you minimize the risk, you stack the odds in your favor, and if you do enough deals, they protect one another. The economy of scale, the size of all the number of deals means that, if a boiler goes, it actually doesn't cost you any money that month. The portfolio pays for it. If a roof needs doing and that's 10 grand, the portfolio pays for it, etc. So you can stabilize your portfolio and you can make phenomenal money, but you have to put yourself out there. You have to make some offers, you have to speak to some vendors, you have to try and help them to solve their problems. Guys, if we can help you at all on your journey, if you would like to have that passive income growing for you, we're still completing on deals in the UK while I'm here. We're negotiating with vendors, I'm doing help visits with vendors, we're signing them up, and we're going through legals and completing them while I'm here. So if you want to be able to do that, if you want to be building a portfolio that pays for you to have the lifestyle that you want, do get in touch with us. We'd love to help. We run seminars every single month. We do discovery days 1 month. We do seminars every other month. And guys, if we can help you on your journey, we'd love to. Until next time, happy investing.